Hello and welcome back. Today's episode is going to focus on the electrical components of this off-grid cabin build. My cabin's going to be solar powered, and I have chosen not to use an inverter in my application. The cabin is small, it's 16 by 22. It's going to have intermittent use, and I'm trying to do this project on a budget. So for all those reasons, I felt like an inverter could be eliminated, and it would be okay to go with a 12-volt system. So, to bring you up to date on what's happened so far, I have had my solar components installed, which includes one panel, two batteries. I'm using lithium batteries, and then there is the solar supply box. I also have rough wired the cabin. Before I can get the actual electrical box up and installed, I need to create the backboard it's going to be hung on, and a piece of plywood won't do in this case because I'm in a small space, so even the utilities need to be aesthetically pleasing, and they're actually going to be in a inset cabinet built into the wall. So I want to have the back of that and the insides of it trimmed out with the same kind of barn wood that I'm going to be using elsewhere in the cabin. My brother is an electrician and has been his whole life, so he has been my guidance on this part of the project. He also has a background with solar, so this is perfect. It's giving me a chance to experience this part of the project as DIY and not have to bring a contractor in, so I'm really excited about what I'm going to get to learn here. We had two different ways that we could go ahead and wire this cabin. We could either use marine type components. It would be very similar to like an RV application, or we could wire it like a typical house is wired using Romex, which is what we decided to do. The benefits to that is it means I'm already wired up and ready to go if I were to add an inverter to my system later. There was also some safety benefits by using the heavier wire, as well as the fact that it was going to make my system a bit more efficient to use the heavier wire. So that's what we're going to show you today. Also worth noting that you can use normal light fixtures when you do a 12-volt system. You just need to wire them a little bit differently, and I will get into that down the road when I start putting fixtures up. You also need to make sure that you can get 12-volt light bulbs that will fit into the light bulb sockets on those fixtures. You can find those now. They're mostly an Edison style light bulb, but they are a DC light bulb that will fit into a typical light fixture. Therefore, the typical light fixture can be made into a direct current light fixture. This is amazing because let me tell you, the market for DC light fixtures is not very broad and wide.
Okay, so what we're gonna, I think we'll go ahead and get a ground bar. The ground bar is gonna mount right here. That's what these little,
Okay.
so that stands off so that you can fasten a little ground bar right there.
Okay.
My reason for doing that is, like we've talked about, if you guys ever converted to an AC system,
I would need this.
right. So we want to terminate, the ground wires in case the day comes when you want to do that. We don't want to just cut them all off, right?
Okay.
So, and again, it really, especially to this, not so important because there's no ground over here. But with the rest of these wires, it's important that we bring them down and terminate them. And I think I told you that I was going to bring you a ground bar, and I forgot to do it.
That's okay.
But
I can get one.
so for now, that cat can just get tucked back in here. You know it's going to terminate right there, so you could actually just snip it off and get rid of some of that. And then that scrap is just all right. So he's out of the way now. This is another kind of, I don't know. I think you would, if in a DC system, you see over here he used red and black, which is that's what you should use, right? But since this is cable, it's standard. It doesn't have a red conductor in it because in an AC system, this would be ungrounded, which is what you call your hot conductor, right? And then this would be the grounded conductor, which is what we call the neutral, right? Mm-hmm. So, in this case, it's sort of the opposite of that, where here your positive is your red and your and your black is your negative. So, we're going to go ahead and wire this up again, like if this was to be an AC application, where we're going to use, this would be your what we would call our hot in AC, but you're going to call your positive in DC. And then this is going to be your negative in DC, or what we would call it neutral in AC. So we're sort of, the color code. Negative. The color code is backwards, I guess is what I'm getting at. But I think it makes sense to wire it this way, so that in case you guys ever convert over. So like when we're doing all the wiring out, here, we got to remember that this will actually be positive, and this will be negative.
Negative.
All right. So.
And these colors will be the same in here.
Yeah, it'll be the same in here. It's going to be like for like anyone in the future that would come and work on this, if it became an AC system,
they need to know that.
I would rather have the color code correct that way.
Okay.
And then like you and I got to know that we have it backwards, for our purposes, which is, this is fine.
Well, maybe I'll even put just like a little tape tag on there that says positive. I mean, that way if Elmer's here doing something or whatever.
Yeah, right on. Right on. So when you look at your panel, then this is the bus bar in here, right? So this lug is connected to that bus bar.
No,
so that
makes it all hot.
Yep, that would be the hot, right? And then so this is, again, because this is supposed to be an AC system, it would have two hots and a neutral. So you would have, L1, a neutral, and L2. So like on the AC system, like up at your house, you have 240, which is what you would measure from L1 to L2, right? And then if you went from either one of them to neutral, you'd measure 120 volts. From here to here would be 120. From here to here would be 120. But if I measured from here to here, I'd see 240. Okay? And so in your application, there's only one positive coming over, right? So in order to use every space in there, we're going to have to put a jumper wire from this lug to this lug, because if you look, see these little tabs? Like that tab is connected to this one, this tab is connected to that one.
Oh, I see.
So
they go every other.
They alternate, right?
I see.
So then, like, if you put in an AC system, if you put a 2-pole breaker in, like spaces 1 and 2 here, that would be 240 volts.
So there's essentially 2 bars.
3. Yeah.
Oh.
You're looking, this is actually the neutral. So this one is connected to that.
This is a bus bar back here.
Yeah. You can't see it because of the plastic. They put that
now.
separator in there.
Okay.
So.
Got it.
So because of the way we're going to do this, if we're going to call this our positive, he's going to have to come in and terminate here, and then we're going to have a jumper wire that goes from here down to here, so that you can use every one of those spaces. Okay. Which will also be unique to this, like if an AC electrician came in here and took that off and saw that jumper, that wouldn't make sense. But like in the future, if you guys convert, then that would become hot, that would become hot, and this would become neutral. So, and then what I would do, now you don't have any gutter space over here because of where this lug's at, so your gutter space is right back in here. So I would form these tight into the corner like that. Run them up this way, bring them over, keep them tight in the back, and then form it down to like there, right? And then, wherever the right length is, you can cut that, and then we'll terminate that wire on that lug.
So this one goes into this lug.
Yep.
This one
is going to go to the one by your left hand, and then we're going to take a jumper to the other one. We'll take another piece of it.
So what's the difference between, Dennis was asking me, having a 12-volt system versus a 24-volt system? Because he was asking, like, if I added batteries or something, would that make it 24-volt? And I said I didn't think that's how it worked. I didn't really have any kind of explanation to offer.
It's how you connect your batteries. So
it doesn't matter how many you have. It's just.
Well, yeah, it depending on the connection. Here you go. You can use these, Jess. This actually has a stripper up to number 6, which I think is what this wire is.
And this one goes into this.
Nope.
This one.
Yeah, that one. Here, you need a smaller screwdriver. There you go. You gotta watch with this. You strip them out. They're the set screw's soft.
Oh.
So here's a
smaller one.
And if you can cut with that, and then it should be the big hole on there.
Okay.
So yeah, cut down at the bottom of the. You could just like, yeah, there you go. And then just use the lug as your strip gauge, like hold it up to here. You can see, yeah, you can see about what you need. Yeah, so what was he saying? Oh, connection. So like you see how you got 2 batteries now, and you have 2 batteries, but you have a 12-volt system, right?
Right.
So those 2 batteries are connected in parallel. So the voltage stays the same, but the
parallel circuit.
The amperage would increase. You could take those 2 batteries and we could connect them in series and make 24 volts, but you would be dropping your your capacity, your amperage. So when voltage is like a seesaw, when voltage goes up, amperage comes down.
So you'd have fewer amps even though you had 24 volts.
So you'd have higher voltage, lower amperage. So and there's benefits to that. I mean, it's but you can build then. You can take.
Does that make it more efficient?
Depends, yeah, because you need, when the amperage goes down, your wire size goes down, right? You have to run heavier copper for higher amperage. Mm-hmm. Like here we are wiring all this, with 12 gauge wire, because we're only using 12 volts, right? I mean, some of these circuits we talked about, it's like you're only going to have a couple amps, but because of the voltage drop at a low voltage, what you got?
Trim some of that off the bottom. Or is it okay?
Are you in the hallway?
Yeah, I'm hitting the plastic.
You're bottomed out there?
Yep.
Oh yeah, you want to cut that. Here. Yeah, or,
doesn't matter.
that'd be make it a little easier on you.
They all hit the bucket exactly. Did you get it?
You could use multiples, like a lot of in big substation battery setups and big deep cell applications. Like they use 2-volt cells so that you can kind of do whatever you want. Like they have, you can series and parallel them. To get the whether you want to do 12, 24, 48. The whole way up to 120 volt. You can make those strings with the 2-volt cells. There you go.
Awesome.
So that's your neutral, or well, here I am saying the wrong word. That's not your neutral. That's your negative. All right.
Now this one's gonna come over to here.
Yep. So you can bring it up and then just make a loop down into it there.
Okay.
Alright, so go ahead and back this one out. You're going to terminate this one here, and you can tighten that up, and then once you have that tightened up, then route it over here, bend it down, and we'll have 2 wires in this, which really isn't cool, but in this application, these lugs are...
And this thing is the neutral bar.
Yeah, and these lugs are typically, they're only rated for 1 conductor. You're only supposed to terminate 1 conductor in them.
Okay.
Right? I'm alright with what we're doing here, for this application, but it's just...
Got it. bathroom lights is on its own thing, which maybe we did do that, you know, because there were so many things on that string of lights. I think that one did come up to being like 72 amps or something. So that probably is right.
Is that working okay?
Yeah.
There's a Robert's tip if you need it.
That's a rubber.
Fast forward, so all my wires are pulled into the box. We went and got a ground bar and put it in the box, and all my ground wires are now connected to that. That's just kind of a dead end thing. It's not actually grounded. We're not going any further with it. It's just there and it's done in the event that we ever would convert the system to being AC and would need those components in place. Now I am connecting my breakers into the box, and then next will be learning to wire breakers.
Yeah, what I do with those then, Jess, is like typically, like you, so these are going to go on the same circuit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'll usually do my neutrals first, you know, so the white wire. So I'll leave the label on the black so I don't forget which one it is.
Okay.
And then because the neutrals, it doesn't matter. You can put them, like this is all common, so they can go in any order up here. Whereas the blacks need to go in the order here. Like you're going to...
That we're going to write on the
Yeah,
panel.
we're gonna actually make a record of this as we go, right?
Oh, okay.
So you can kind of like go through and, you know, get all your white ones done. Yeah.
All right, got it. Thanks. That's gonna be beautiful when they're done.
Yeah, it's really cool. But they've been doing. They have a YouTube channel. We've been watching those guys. It's really interesting. But they're like doing, like all the carpentry work is intense because it's like they had to scribe. It's a stone building, right? So like all the floors and everything that they do has to meet a very, you know, erratic surface. You know, so they have to scribe everything. Everything's a custom cut. You know.
There's a family I watch off and on, and
After completing this panel, I got a quick lesson in how to wire an electrical switch, and then it was my homework to get the rest of the devices wired and ready for live power when Matt came back the following week.
all right, so we're gonna see if I can remember how to do this based upon my demonstration yesterday. So this is the home run coming from my electrical box into my gang box. We're going to strip that open first. Back as far as I can get it.
Whenever they put up the drum. Just these boards that we have laying up here,
Yeah?
they're to go. We found a place for them. It's just we have to wait till they put up the drywall.
Oh, got it. So just leave them where they're at.
Yeah.
All right. That blade is insanely dull. Guess we'll start by putting a new blade in my knife. I cut Durarock with it yesterday. Clearly, that's the death of the blade. Ooh, check that out. Now that is getting something done. that back as far as I can. Cut off as much of that insulation as I can.
Jess, is it okay for me to turn on this generator?
Oh yeah, go for it.
I'm going to be wiring those ground wires into my switches and receptacles, even though they're not actually being used. It's just going to take care of it and have them done. That way, if we ever switched over to an alternating current system later on, I don't need to go back and do any rewiring in those switch boxes. Now the light switches in this cabin are all going to be the heavy duty industrial grade switches, and that's because the 12 volt system is going to create more of an arc when you flip the switch, and you need a heavier switch to be able to withstand that. So using a regular household grade switch would not be a good idea for this application.
Turn it off.
Keep going.
It's about.
Yeah, that's good. Good there?
And then we're going to push that back in against the back as far as I can. And I got the ground wire here coming for each of my light switches. So one light switch is going to turn on my back porch light. The other light switch is going to turn on the 3 lights here in the back of the cabin. Alright, so now I'm going to go over here. These are the neutrals. In our case, because we are using this system as a 12 volt system, these are essentially my negative wires. I'm gonna get
Perfect.
stripped. And then this was kind of tricky to do yesterday when I was being taught. I was told it was okay. It's tricky for everybody when they start. I'm going to start twisting these. Insulation piece on there.
Try and grab
Off the end. Alright. The idea here is my wire nut will cover all that is copper. Alright, so there is that part in. Now this part here, I'm gonna have to bend down. Now I gotta make a pigtail for this piece. So I'm gonna need a wire scrap, which I suppose I happen to have right here. So this piece of black wire, which is my positive in this case because of it being 12 volt system. I probably don't have all the right technical terms. I'm not an electrician. So I got back here a little bit. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead
right here.
strip that. I'm going to strip each of these. Maybe, maybe not. Alright. And I'm going to put them together.
So when you buy things that are 12 volt that need plugged in, you kind of get a variety of options of how you're going to do that. Some of those just literally come with alligator clips like that you would clip onto a battery. Some use like a receptacle that would look like something you would plug into a cigarette lighter, and others will have a plug that has two horizontal type prongs to it. So I needed to come up with a receptacle that would receive those prongs. Therefore, I am wiring 240 volt single plug receptacles into my cabin for my 12 volt appliances that'll need plugged in.
Now I have 1, 2, 3, and then switch on that. Yeah. So that was funny. My brother had told me to make sure that you put the switch in the right direction. You'll know that it's not if you look at it and it says no, right? So turn it on and it says on, then you know you definitely have the switch going in the right direction. So I'm going to put the ground in.
Now, a few of the items I got, like my fan or some of the lights that will be plugged in, came with some kind of end on the wire that was not something I could plug right into my DC outlet. That is the 240 volt style receptacle. So it's not a big deal. I got a few plug ends as well that fit with that receptacle, and I will be wiring them onto the ends of those devices before I am finished, and I'll show that at some point. The other challenge was to figure out how guests were going to charge their electronic devices on my 12 volt system. So I have purchased several charging stations which will be wired into my walls. They are a box that gets wired to DC current, and they each have 2 USB ports as well as a 12 volt port, similar to like what would be in your vehicle or like a cigarette lighter. And they'll be used for charging devices and for laptops or things that require like a regular 120 volt plug. There will be a inverter. I have a small portable inverter that can be plugged into that 12 volt receptacle, and then your laptop plugged into it, and that is how they will be charged. Some point down the road here, I will do a follow-up video where all those items are shown, and you can kind of see the functional application of the 12 volt system, how it's actually going to work, how I'm hoping it's going to work.
I'm not exactly sure. What time?
We'll be okay.
Dennis.
8.
Okay, that's fine.
Alrighty.
That sounds good. That'll give you a little bit of a head start,
Yeah.
and then Dennis and I can work in that area
Yep.
while you're coming out across here. Sounds good. Thank
Alright.
you.
Decided that March is going to be the month that I get this cabin wrapped up and finished. There's a lot to do, but I feel like I can do this. So I've got help coming in from different areas. I got Carter and Cooper willing to work on the ceiling. I've got my neighbor coming to help me with the drywall. My brother's been here helping me with the electrical components. So I'm just going to make sure every day something gets done down here. And I have high hopes that you'll be seeing a finished cabin by the end of the month. Ta-da!
All right, off, on. I still know what's going on in this box. I just gotta shove this in. My gosh, that's a little tougher than I thought. Shoved in. All right. There we go. Those will mount up then. Screwed in. Right on. All right. Success. So I'm not going to switch anything up. We're going to do all of one kind of switch at a time. That means up next is switch in the bathroom, switch in the kitchen. Okay.
So up until this point on this project, I've got the chance to experience framing. I've got to do roofing. I've done door and window installation. I've done masonry work. I've done plumbing. I have done electrical work. And I've decided that of all those things, framing and electrical have been my two absolute favorite. Both have required me to learn a lot, and I've made some mistakes, but I have enjoyed the process and would jump at a chance to repeat doing either or. By the end of the week, we got the system live. We tested all the circuits. Everything was wired up okay. I was super excited about that. I know I'm not an electrician, but this was an awesome experience to get to dabble and play with the wires and understand how this works and the mechanics of putting it together. Well, there it is. I don't know if that answered questions or created questions. I hope that at the very least it has inspired you to try something new or keep digging into the project you're already pursuing. Thank you, though, again for watching. Please, till I post again, stay outside and stay creative and stay in the way of what inspires you. Be sure to look below for links and for articles. If you like this, please take the time to push like. I would appreciate that. And if you want to catch the next video, make sure you hit subscribe.